I am so excited to be here tonight. I am absolutely exhausted after 2 days of Prime, so I hope you guys have primed the Prime pump. It has been an amazing 2 days of Prime, so I hope you guys had some amazing sales for the last 2 days. When I say I am exhausted, I am exhausted. I have the UPS man that comes to my home. I have the USPS man that comes to my home, and we joke all the time, but I know that they are sick to death of me. So it has been a whirlwind of a couple of days. So I'm excited to bring to you tonight the last of the Shopping for Profits series. And so I have switched a few things up because I've been running around like a crazy person for the last few days. It has been a unicorn experience, to say the least. So I will bring my best for you tonight, just in terms of some things that came to me about my experience over the last couple of days. So tonight, I don't know if Tony's on or not, but Tony's been sending me some things that I failed to get in. So I will post of the things that she's been sending over to me in our group for you guys, just because she's been sending me some amazing finds, but she was texting them to me and I could not get them over to the computer. My phone was giving me fits. And so I didn't get any of the screenshots that she sent me over onto the presentation. So Tony is an amazing teacher. She's been selling online for the better part of 15 years. She's married to Chris, a wonderful man, and they've got 4 daughters. I don't know how she does that, but they're ranging age from 28 to 20. Tony sells on multiple platforms online. And if you have had the privilege of being trained by Tony, you know that she is just a real go-getter. She's passionate about everything she does, and it shows in everything that she does. So Tony's been rocking it online on Amazon. And since she's been working with the trainers here at eCom Sellers Academy, she's already hit close to 100K in her Amazon business, and she did that pretty quickly. So we love, love, love Tony. She's a wonderful trainer because of her teaching background. I don't have that, so I know that that shows. I'm a single mom. I've got an IT background. I've got a technical background. I don't have a teaching background. I run around for a living with my boys. And so I'm the side hustle chick. I've been selling online, eBay. I sit behind a computer. That's what I do. I don't have the teaching training, show you how to do stuff. I just do it. So I've been selling online for about 20 years. I started on eBay, and when I made the transition over to Amazon, I decided I liked it. But I started out selling online. I had the Fred Sanford dad that had stuff sitting around the house, and I used to drag stuff over to the side of the curb and sit outside, and people would drive up and I would sell stuff. And that's kind of how I funded all of my summer fun as a kid. And so when eBay came around, I found things around the house that I wasn't using, sold stuff, and that was my side hustle. I always worked full time, and I always had side hustles. And so I guess it's been about 12 years ago, I decided to make my side hustle my main hustle. And so my sons, who are tween and teen, keep me pretty busy. And so I've been doing mostly Amazon full time. And so my tagline is Amazon pays all of my bills. And so I sell on a bunch of different platforms as well, but I do a bunch of different stuff in addition to all of my other stuff. So e-commerce is my full-time hustle, but I also do a bunch of different things. But Amazon pays my bills and then some. We travel and we play basketball and we play in the hot Texas sun and do some other stuff. But I love the flexibility that FBA gives me. And as I get into my presentation tonight, you'll see that I'm moving in some different ways, but it allows me to spend time with my kids And so that's what we've been doing. But Tony and I together, we've got a lot of experience, and we've got some common groups that we've been doing some training. We've been getting training from and doing some training with. And so we love to show people what we do. And so tonight, like I said, I'm taking things in a little bit of a different direction because I got super busy with shipping stuff out and trying to get my piece of the pie with Prime. But tonight I want to talk to you about some sourcing criteria. I know I said I would do that. It's super simple because you've got to do what you got to do, and you've got to make it make sense for you. Tony and I talked about it while she was out of town, but also keeping it super simple, but wanted just about bundling. And it's mainly talk. I don't have really screens to go with that, but bundling and how you can make that work for your business. Real quickly, I got into some things just really at the end of today about some fees and stuff, because today's the 15th. So I wanted to talk to you about that as well, but hopefully I can tell you some ways to kind of manage some of your long-term storage fees that will help you increase your overall profits. And these are things that you can start using immediately. So we're here to help you figure out if you're ready to scale your eCom business. And that's what we here at eCom Sellers Academy want to help you do. We want to help you increase your bottom line. So when you talk about your sourcing criteria, people always ask, how do you figure out what to buy? And we've been, for a long time, we had these sheets. We used to have these handy dandy ranking sheets that were super, super great tools. And then Amazon kind of shut it down. I think it was sometime last year, and we couldn't get our hands on them anymore. And I searched and searched and searched, and I was able to find one today. And so I was super excited, but it was pretty old. But what I want to say to you is you've got to set your own goals. What makes sense to you? I know for me, because I do this full time, what makes sense to me doesn't always make sense to everybody else. For me, I was able to say, if it's in the top 10% of toys, I was snagging it. And for the most part, I was clearing the shelves. But a lot of people would say, well, it had to be in the top 5% or it had to be in the top 1%. I mean, that didn't make sense to me, because my thing that I was teaching was, if it's on Amazon, it's going to sell. I sold some stuff that I'd had around on Amazon for years, and it was something that I'd forgotten about because I'd moved. It sold. I had absolutely no cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs idea where it even was, because it's something I had listed on an account that I didn't even know was even there anymore. But what I'm saying by this is it sold, people. I mean, like, I'd forgotten about it. This on Amazon, I tell people it is going to sell. It's just a matter of when. And so for me, and again, I'll get to this slide in a minute, but if it's in, and again, set your own goals. You have to know what makes sense to you in terms of what your goals are. Nicole has talked many times about knowing your numbers. If you go back to the beginning of our launch, talks a lot about setting your goals and knowing how much money you need to make to flip these things and how fast you've got to get your money back. But when you set your own goals, you got to know what makes sense to you. I'll get to a slide here that has some actual BSR numbers that show kind of how many items are in each category. And so a good BSR, and that's a bestsellers rank. I know back at the beginning of this series, I talked about some of these acronyms, but a bestsellers rank is simply a number that Amazon uses that kind of talks about two things you'll hear people say. One is the last time it sold, or how many items have sold since it sold last. And for me, it's kind of, just know this, a lower number is better. So in other words, if it's a 1, then that means it is the number 1 item in that category. People get confused by bestsellers rank, but a number 1 item on Amazon in toys, which has about 6 million items in that category, that's a good item. And so for me, if you say top 10% in toys, that's great. So that means that there's 600,000 items, and that item is better than. And so if I'm going to look to scale up in my inventory, then I'm going to use historical data and I'm going to use some analysis. We've talked about a few tools. We've talked about Camel. We've talked about Keepa. We've talked about Jungle Scout. We've talked about a few. You can do some research and try to find out which of those tools is easier for you to use. I mean, there's a ton of them out there, but you've got to be able to look at a plan. And this is just a suggestion, but for me, this is where I'm going to be able to kind of take myself out of the equation. I want to be able long-term to outsource. What will you need to be able to do that? I'm just one person, so I'm self-employed, but I'm involved right now in every facet of my business. I'm involved in the sourcing. I'm involved in the upkeep of my business. I'm involved in the data. I'm involved in the taxes. I'm involved in the planning. I'm involved in the shipping. I'm involved in every piece of it. So when we start talking about scaling up, we've talked about starting up your business. We've talked about growing your business. And so now tonight, I want to talk to you about actually growing yourself out of this part of the business. So when we look at a good BSR or a good bestsellers rank, that's going to vary by each category. So same thing with ROI. Good ROI is going to vary not just by category now, but it's going to vary by person. How much do you want to make in a particular, on a particular item and in a particular category? So let me go ahead and skip to the next slides. I was actually able to get my hands on this. This is like a hot commodity now. We used to be able to get these every month and Amazon shut us down. So I had to search and search and search for one of these, and this is actually still a bit outdated. I think it's a few months old. But if you look at this, all the way over here on the right side, this is the total number of items in a particular category. And so if you look at clothing, there's 84 million items in clothing, shoes, and jewelry, 50 million items in books, but only 400,000 items in appliances. So if you talk about a top 10% item, you know, I don't know, a 10,000, if you looked at an item ranked, I wanted to say 100,000, but that didn't work. So 100,000, an item ranked 100,000 in books would be okay and or be great in books, but it would, wouldn't be so in arts and crafts. You have to be very careful when you start talking about that top 10% anymore. And when you look at one of these charts, even, you have to be very careful when you look at that. People say, well, I'm going to look at an item and I'm only going to grab something in the top 10%. You have to make sure you're looking at the total number of items in a particular category. So again, this one is, we like to look at toys. We're going into Q4. I hope you guys are getting prepped for Q4. But again, toys has 6 million total items in, and this is an older chart, a few months old. In toys and games, sports and outdoors, 20 million items. So yeah, I'll take a 100,000 ranked item in toys all day long. But when I look at 100,000, a rank of 100,000 and maybe a musical instrument, maybe not so much. So going back to that slide, sourcing criteria, got to set your own goals. You got to know what makes sense to you. So again, a good BSR is going to vary by category. when you're looking at setting your goals? Are you going to look in the top 10%? Are you going to look in the top 5%? And two of the main factors when you're looking at your sourcing, good BSR, what's that look like to you, and a good ROI? What does that look like to you? Are you going to look for a 50% ROI? Are you going to look for a 40% ROI? Maybe 20% is good enough for you. Of course, you're an investor, you know, what are we getting? What kind of returns are we getting in the bank now? You know, you're looking at 5%, 1% on a CD. So, you know, this is a pretty good investment if you're investing in your e-commerce business. You know, you're spending some time in the stores, you're spending some time shipping your items in, but if you're getting 10 or 20% return on your investment for these items, it's a lot better than your money sitting in a bank. So I want you to take note of that in terms of, you know, you're spending your time on this, but if you've got your money, $10,000 or $20,000 sitting in a bank, you're making a lot more money putting your money into physical products and getting money back from Amazon than you are letting your money sit in a bank. So, you know, 401k, a lot more risky, but yeah, if you've got your money sitting in a CD, you know, the return's a lot less. So just something to think about. So I want to talk to you a little bit about bundling. This is one way that you might look at scaling your business a bit. Bundling is a way that you can get 2 or more products that are already doing well on Amazon and bundle them. Why would you want to do that? There's a little less competition. You've got items that you're sending in. You can get less competition on them. You can get your own UPC codes, create your own listing, and you can go and get those ranked. This is a great time to do that because you can differentiate your product and you don't have to go white label or private label. So there's less risk. You don't have to put all the money into creating your own product. You've got products that are already out there that are ranked. You've got products that are already out there that are popular. You can test the waters if you do want to create your own product. And this is a great way to get in there and get some great sales for Q4. Of course, this would have been a good way to get this done for Prime Day, get some sales in. And of course, back to school. I got an example of this. So if you wanted to do this, you would just go and list a new product. This is how you would do this. You go to the catalog, add a new product. You put a product ID in there, and I just brought this up. This would be a good example, like Paw Patrol items would be an example of things that are already hot, things that are already popular, things that are already selling. So if you grabbed a few items, a Paw Patrol pencil box or a Paw Patrol lunch box, a Paw Patrol backpack, you could put those items in there as a combo. That would be something that's maybe not already selling. You put a UPC code on there, and then that would be your own item. You sell that as a bundle, and as it gains some traction and started selling, then you'd have a bundled item out there without actually having to go and create your own item. You could get some sales going for back to school and actually get some increased sales going just before school starts. I know here in Texas, we're going back to school at the end of next month. In some areas on the East Coast, they don't start back until September. So just an idea, like I said, if you're looking at scaling your business, this is an idea that you could do, like actually sending in a bunch of bundles before school starts. Just an idea. Another idea for scaling your business is just to do more of what's working. As I mentioned, there's just one of me. I don't have a bunch of family members that I can get in on my business. I don't have a bunch of employees working for me currently. So you can only do so much, only so many hours in the day. So there's only so much you can do in terms of scaling your business with this model. Scaling your business with outsourcing. You can get help to do what you do so you can grow your business. With outsourcing, this is the model that I'm currently looking at going toward, and it's a little scary because I'm looking at actually hiring people to do some of my sourcing. And I don't know, I've been talking about doing this actually for a couple of years, and I looked at it a few times, and then I got afraid that, you know, what's to stop people from actually buying the items and listing them themselves. And I've been talking to a few people and actually interviewing a few people, but it takes a certain mindset to want to risk, you know, buying the inventory and actually, you know, want to have a business like we do, all of us on this call tonight. And so I've just decided to bite the bullet and do it. There's a few things that you can do to protect yourself. A non-compete clause is one of those things, but there are people who just want to get paid to do a task. And so I'm going to focus on finding those people that are going to be a good fit for the position that I'm hiring for. The other thing that I'm going to focus on is actually creating a system that will make sure that there are going to be, you know, certain criterion, several criteria just for what type of products they'll buy. And if it fits the criteria, then they will buy a certain quantity. And if it doesn't fit the criteria, they'll leave it on the shelf. And so that will free me up to be able to actually grow my business. And so this is one way that you can look at scaling your business. I'm at a place in my business now where I want to be able to leave my business so that I can be free to grow my business. I want to be able to not be an employee of my business the way I have been for the last 6 years. I want to be able to grow it outside of what I'm able to do. So if you are at that place, you'll know when you are ready to scale your business, when you've grown outside of, you know, your business is at a place where you can only do so much, and you're, you know, you've grown to a place where it's only you, or, you know, if your spouse or your children or whatever, you've grown outside of what you or whoever's working with you in your business can do. Wholesale, if you are working inside your business and it's you or your partner or your family or whatever, wholesale is a natural progression outside of retail arbitrage, because if you have certain products in your business that are selling well on Amazon, then you can take those same products and actually reach out to the distributor or the manufacturer and find out if they are willing to develop a relationship with you and sell to you directly. And you can actually send those products into Amazon. The flip side of that, or the downside of that, is normally you're getting these products at a deep discount, because I know for me anyway, I'm buying these items mostly on clearance, and so you're getting a really deep discount. So the ROI may not be as great as it has been, but for the most part, I'm getting these items, you know, 1 off, 2 off, maybe, you know, 10 or 20 at a time, because I'm getting them on clearance. And so you may not always be able to go back and get more of them. That will probably pay off because you're not in the aisles scanning with a scanner, and, you know, you'll be able to reorder them and sell them repeatedly. And so, you know, it's a payoff, but it's kind of a natural progression. So that's one way that you may look at scaling your business. Online arbitrage is another thing. And I know we've got an online arbitrage series coming up. I've always preferred retail arbitrage kind of for that reason, because online, everybody kind of gets, there's a lot of tools out there, but everybody kind of gets all the information at once, and the competition is super steep. I know there's some great deals that come up. I've tried it a few times, but, you know, there's a few things that you can do if you want to scale your business, and wholesale is a natural progression. Online arbitrage is as well. So with wholesale, again, like I said, you can start with the low-hanging fruit, and you can reach out, and then you can branch off as well with some of the complementary products. I'll give you an example, not one that I've used, but let's say you've been selling Nerf guns online. I'm actually not allowed to sell Nerf guns. I'm ungated in tons and tons of brands, but Nerf is one I'm not allowed to sell. But let's say you're selling Nerf guns online, and then you reach out to Nerf and they say, yeah, sure, we'll sell you, let's say you got a minimum order quantity of 200. And so you reach out to another dart gun company and say, hey, we've got a relationship with Nerf. We want to start selling for you. And then you start selling barriers. And so you can start selling complementary products, and then you can start selling accessories as well. Maybe there's different things, scopes and triggers and all kinds of other stuff that you can sell as well. So that's one thing that you can do, is look at wholesale. And then I want to talk to you, today was the 15th, or yesterday was the 15th, and I ran into, as I was looking at my, I started looking at my fees, and then I started thinking this is something that I wanted to cover tonight. So one way to increase your earnings is to absolutely decrease your fees. And so long-term storage fees take a big chunk out of some sellers' earnings because they simply aren't tracking their fees. So it used to be that they didn't do this but twice a year. Now they're doing it every month. And the fees did go down a little bit because they're doing it every month. But if your products are up there for 6 to 12 months, it's $3.45 per cubic foot. And if they're there for over a year, then it's $6.90 per cubic foot. And these fees can add up very quickly. So I want to talk to you about a few ways that I use to actually minimize these long-term storage fees. So I want to really take a deep dive into this, but there's a few ways that we can do this, but I like to look at all of the promotions that they are offering, and they don't always offer them, but it's definitely worth taking a look at. They sometimes offer a promotion if they, I think it's a few times a year, but sometimes they'll let you remove them for free. And you've got to do it you have to do it by a certain time frame. And so they have a period where you can do it. And so you want to make sure that when it's offered, it's to your advantage to actually take a look at that. So what I usually do is actually put it on my calendar and make sure that if I have items up there, that I'm actually putting in removal, putting in an actual removal request to get those sent back to me. It is absolutely to your advantage that if there's an expiration on there, that you get those in and have them sent back to you because it's free. So it's usually about 3 to 6 months out. And so if you're gonna avoid long-term storage fees, then you want to have those sent back to you, but you need to take a look at those item by item and make sure, like, you don't want to have a Valentine's Day items sent back to you if Valentine's Day is coming up in those next couple of months, that sort of thing. But the timelines are going to vary slightly, but just make sure that you're aware of them in advance when they're coming up. The other thing is that there are in-stock levels that you can actually manage from the start. So there are quantities that you may want to take a look at when you're sending them in, so that you can send them in. If you're going to only send in quantities that you're going to sell in 6 months or less, you have minimal long-term storage fees that you won't have to worry about. There was an opportunity for me to teach about this, I think it was last summer, and it was right before they changed all of this. And so it was like poo-poo on them, but it was a big thing. It's like, you know, we can actually manage all of this from the very beginning. It's like, okay, well, I know a lot of people don't want to have a lot of inventory at their house, but when I buy stuff, it's like, you know, we were teaching everybody to clear the shelves. But I like to say now, you know, when I'm buying something, and I just taught about this back in March of this year, how do you determine how much of something that you're actually going to buy? Well, you can determine based on the bestsellers rank how much of something is actually going to sell in about 30 days based on the bestsellers rank. So if you don't want to have a bunch of inventory at your house, you know, you can determine how much of it has sold based on the historical data, you know, how much of it to buy. So you can manage those levels, you know, of how much you're going to send in from the very beginning. That's one thing that you can do to kind of manage your long-term storage fees. That's another thing that we want to do. So Amazon also offers promotions and sponsored ads. That's something else that you really can't, you know, you can't determine that on the front end, but, you know, something that you can actually take into account from the very beginning. It's like, okay, well, if I'm going to have something out here and it's going to be costing me money, maybe I'm actually going to pay for an ad instead of, you know, and all this stuff is going to be, you know, something that you kind of factor in. If it's going to cost me money, maybe I'm going to run an ad or run one of Amazon's promotions instead, if it's going to cost less, instead of paying for the long-term storage fees. One of the things, if you've got a lot of inventory, maybe I'll have some items that I can actually come down and determine which ones I'm actually going to have, you know, sent back to me. And then the other thing is, you know, it's another thing that you kind of have to come up and look at from the very beginning, but the timing on when you're going to send it in. This is one of those things, again, that you know, it's basically if you've got a lot of inventory, it's everybody's not going to be in this boat. But if you've got enough inventory, there's going to be some stuff that, you know, when am I going to send it in? If you've got a lot of Valentine stuff, you know, you're probably not going to determine that when you're going to send this in. And if you buy it in, you know, when it goes on clearance right after Valentine's Day, maybe you don't send it in right after Valentine's Day. That might be something, you know, that you're going to wait until, you know, right after. I typically send things in about 3 months prior to, if it's a lot of it, or send it in about 3 months prior to the holiday. But these are some really good tips as far as managing your long-term storage fees. Again, this stuff came up today, and I kind of shifted some of the things that I was going to talk about, but managing your fees has a lot to do with managing your earnings. And so one of the ways that you're going to figure out how much your fees are going to be, I had to do this just yesterday because it was coming up and I knew I was about to get hit, but you're going to log into your seller's account. You're on Seller Central. You're going to go into your seller account. You're going to hover over your reports. You're going to select fulfillment. You can do this now. And on the left-hand side of your screen, under your inventory, you're going to click on Show More. You're going to select your inventory health. You're going to click on the Download tab, and you're going to request your download. And as that report, you're going to download that report as it becomes available and open that text file that downloads. And anywhere on that text file, you're going to select All. And you're going to do this by right-clicking and then selecting All, holding the Control key, and then clicking the letter A, Control A. That's how you're going to get that report, and you're going to get to see everything that you're about to be charged a long-term storage fee for. This is super important, and you can do this just about at any time, but it's going to be a great way for you to manage your long-term storage fees. And these reports, Amazon does a great job of giving you tons and tons of information. We've talked many times about Amazon being the king of data. And so you want to make sure that you're logging in as often as possible and checking out all the information that Amazon is giving you access to. You're going to be able to see all the information that you have access to and being able to manage your business in a very precise manner so that you know what's going on in your business and you're able to know everything that you need to do. The long-term storage fees, one of those things that comes up to bite you in the butt. And we know as business owners, you know, how many times have you seen when you get your settlement report and it's not nearly as much as you thought it was going to be, because you see these sales. I know Prime Day, you see all these sales coming through. And then when payday comes, you're like, well, what happened to all those sales I had? Where'd all that money go? And then lo and behold, like yesterday was a great sales day. And then all of a sudden you see Amazon is taking out all these fees. And on the 15th of every month now, they're taking out long-term storage fees. So anything that, and as I mentioned, let me go back to that screen. But if on that day, anything that has been there 6 to 12 months, those fees add up relatively quickly. So that's a great way to be able to go and see what you're going to get hit with. I encourage you that there are a couple of strategies that you can use to make sure that your fees are going to be as little as possible. I like to use the pricing strategy just to be able to sell through. What I mean by that is if I can lower price enough to be able to even be able to sell it, even if I'm going to make very little profit off of it, it's better than taking a loss on it just because I'm going to now get hit with a storage fee. Again, I like to be able to only send in quantities that are likely to sell in 6 months or less. Then I won't have that long-term storage fee to worry about. And then I also like to determine the cost for returning an item rather than getting hit with a long-term storage fee. In other words, if sending it back to me is going to be less than getting a fee, you know, you've got to weigh the, you know, the pros and cons. So there's a couple of different things that you can do, but again, you got to weigh the pros and cons. But either way, you know, even if it's just a few cents less, Amazon has my item up there, but if it's going to be a few cents less for me to have it returned to me rather than them charging me a fee, you got to think about that. Think about it. The item is still there. And unless that item sells, I'm going to run into the same problem again the very next month. So if it doesn't sell in the next 30 days, now I've got to go through the same exercise again the very next month. And then I'm still going to have it sent back to me. So like to think about some of those strategies, think about some of those exercises that you're going to go through. So typically, if it's a few cents less for me to have it returned to me, I'm going to do that rather than leave it there another 30 days and then have them charge me a long-term storage fee. And then I've got to go through the same thing the very next month, especially if it's something that I think I can merchant fulfill or sell on another platform. So I'm going to wrap this up so you guys can hop on the Q&A tonight. I know every time we get started on this, it runs over and you don't get a chance to jump on the Q&A. That's one of the great benefits of the eCom Sellers Academy. If you haven't joined the eCom Sellers Mastermind, we've got a great support group. It's absolutely free. Jump over there and join the eCom Sellers Mastermind group today. We've been talking about the eCom Sellers Q4 Summit. That is coming up in just a few weeks. It's August 5th through 7th. It is absolutely free to get registered. Make sure you jump on over there and get registered. That's ecomq4summit.com. Jump over there and get registered now. It's free, ecomq4summit.com. And we appreciate each and every one of you. I absolutely love you guys for joining tonight. Again, I hope you've had a wonderful Prime. If this is your first Prime, we want you to get registered for Q4. We want you to get all of your friends registered for eCom Sellers Academy so they can have a great Prime. They can be selling for Prime next year. ecomq4summit.com. And we appreciate each and every one of you for being here tonight. We appreciate your attention. And I am absolutely delighted that you have chosen to spend your time with me tonight. Y'all have a great night.